there is a game being played this Sunday. Jordan covers for NJ.com, the Giants. Jordan, first question. I always seem to botch your name, so can you pronounce it correctly for me?
Raanan.
Raanan. Okay, so I did get it right this time.
Raanan. Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things that's sort of expected. There's too many A's in there for anyone to realistically know how to say it or get it right. So I've come to the conclusion that whatever anyone says is fine with me.
See, I kind of have a similar last name. My last name is Hennig, but because people are expecting that extra N in there, everyone keeps messing it up. So I always try to get people's last names right if I possibly can.
Yeah, well, vowels are a tough thing. Vowels is to throw everything off. You have too many vowels in the name like me, it makes it a mess.
So, Jordan, you cover the Giants. The Giants have had a very turbulent season, starting in the offseason with...
Yeah, bad's fine. You can say bad. I think that's fair.
Okay. Well, it's bad. But, I mean, I started in the offseason with, JPP, the fireworks incident, and then the preseason, some people weren't sure who exactly was going to be healthy for the Giants coming into the season, and then we've seen the season progress. Kind of give a little capsule year in review of the Giants here.
Yeah, well, the Giants, first of all, their roster was thin in the first place, and the JPP loss was a big hit. They had another big hit. They lost their left tackle in, March or April when he got injured in a weight room accident. Pretty much the beginning of the spring. So, they essentially lost their left tackle and their top defensive player and their top pass rusher. So, Jason Pierre-Paul, we know the story by now. He came back, but let's be honest, the realistic scenario is that he wasn't coming back as the same exact player that they were hoping to have when they constructed the roster before the season. So then they get to the season. They lost some grueling, ridiculous games, that they just should have never lost, including the opener, which kind of set the tone in Dallas, where they tried not to score. And, Rashad Jennings and the coach didn't even know about it. So very unorthodox situation. They've now lost 6 games by 4 points or less. Think about that for a second. I mean, all you needed to do was split those games, and they would have been in, probably won the division and ran away with it. They actually, if you look back on it now, also, they were in position to pretty much put away the division when they went in post-bye. I think it was week 12 or 13. Again, I think it was 13 against the Washington Redskins. They went to Washington. They pretty much had a chance to put away the division, and they got smacked in Washington, and then they've gone downhill since. So now they're losers of, 5 of the last 6, and the Giants are another losing season, 4th straight year without the playoffs. Team that's obviously not heading in the right direction there.
Jordan, you look at this roster, and obviously you mentioned it's a very thin roster already. It can be argued that Eli Manning is the best quarterback in this division, and he's got a roster with an offensive line that doesn't do a very good job blocking, running backs who have underperformed. Odell Beckham, obviously he got suspended for the Vikings game. The offense hasn't really been as consistent as one, and the defense wasn't able to stop anybody. How much of this year has been a strain on Eli Manning?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, they just wasted another year of Eli Manning. I mean, he's going to be 35. I think he turns 35 either tomorrow or the day after. So he'll be 35-year-old quarterback. There's not that many years left of Eli Manning, so they're sort of wasting those years now. The flip side is, their offense wasn't great. There was too much inconsistency. So, some of that has to go with Eli. The Odell Beckham thing kind of, spiraled out of control in that game. That's another thing you can say, hey, Eli's supposed to be the third, the veteran, the guy on the team that's supposed to, that everybody looks up to. Like, that's something that, he could have control of things. And he could play a part in it. He could have stepped in there and prevented some of that stuff maybe from happening by telling his guy to get in line. That's what you kind of want from your leader. So he's not completely free of blame, but he also did have a very solid year. When your quarterback has 33 touchdown passes, that's a pretty good year. That means he's getting you to the end zone a lot. You need a little bit more help around, and what they didn't do is make a good contingency plan for Victor Cruz, so they end up losing for the entire season. Now, the offensive line is not quite as bad as everyone makes it out to be. They're actually, I'd say, an average offensive line, so it's not like that's the problem. but they do lack some playmakers around Eli and Beckham. It's really the Eli and Beckham show. And the defense in general hasn't been good enough. But, like I said, 6 games, 4 points or less. It's not like there wasn't enough talent to have an opportunity to win a lot of these games.
We're talking with Jordan Raanan of NJ.com, covers the Giants. Obviously, there's not a lot on the line for this game on Sunday, but some could say that
a trip to London is on the line. That's what's on the line.
There's that, but there's also a draft position as well. We can throw that in there.
Yes, that is. And you know what? You don't really want to play Seattle next year. You'd much rather play the Rams. I mean, that's a pretty obvious thing. So, in regards to schedule next year, you kind of want to lose. You lose this game, and you go to St. Louis, and you don't have. I mean, you go to London to play St. Louis, and you don't have to play Seattle. So I think that's actually a big deal.
Okay, well, outside of those two things, obviously there's no playoff implications on the line.
Right.
But some people are saying that the Giants may come out and play a passionate game for their embattled coach Tom Coughlin.
Yeah, I mean that. I kind of see that as being obviously it's a narrative street right there, but. This is whatever you say about Tom Coughlin. He's had his down moments here these last couple of years for sure. The organization has not trended in the right direction, but they've, for the most part, played hard for Tom Coughlin over these last 3 years. Even when they've been out of it, even when their season has long been over, they've played for him. They've won a lot of games actually down the stretch. When they didn't win many games during the season the previous 2 years, so. Effort has not been the problem, and they've always gotten up for him. The guys in the locker room, they still respect him. And I asked a lot of guys off the record, if they thought, the coaching might have cost them games. And that's just not the way guys think. They think that Tom Coughlin has done a good job, and he's gotten them up to play, and they just haven't made plays. So they're going to go out there. They're going to play for him. And I think they've all I don't know if they fully understand that he's most likely not going to be back next year, but at the same time they do hear all the rumblings, so they understand that it is a possibility.
Jordan, a lot of people like to blame Coughlin. I mean, he's been the blamed guy for almost 10 years now in New York for almost anything that could happen to this Giants team. But how much of the 2015 problems are actually a reflection on the GM Reese?
Yeah, I mean, you could spread it around evenly. I mean, everybody, you can look, the roster wasn't good enough. I don't think the coaching was good enough. The players didn't perform well enough from pretty much top to bottom, aside from Eli and Beckham. So I think you could really spread it around. But, the 3 biggest mistakes for this team were the lack of a contingency plan for Victor Cruz at wide receiver, the lack of a contingency plan for John Beeson at linebacker, and the lack of any sort of plan, it seems, at safety. So, those 3 spots really were the downfall of this team, and you should have had some sort of plan there, especially when you're looking at guys like Victor Cruz, who's coming off such a serious injury, never made it back, and John Beeson, who really hasn't played for much of the last 4 or 5 years because of it. So you put all that together and you say, hey, there needed to be a better plan in place, and obviously it's in retrospect at this point. But you say there needed to be better plans in place there, and that falls on the general manager. And there wasn't, and it ended up biting this team in the butt. I mean, if you had a middle linebacker, a real contingency plan at middle linebacker, it could have made the difference and could have got you a couple more wins. If you could have got a little bit more out of their wide receivers, they had another playmaker there who can make some plays, it could have made a big difference.
Jordan, I want to ask you about this game this Sunday, about the fact that it's kind of odd that you have 2 teams that are pretty much looking so much different than when they played earlier this year when the Eagles won. What kind of a game do you expect to see on Sunday?
Not a good one. I mean, first of all, when they played last time, it was really ugly. Both teams played horribly. The Eagles won going away, and Sam Bradford actually played terrible. I mean, he threw 3 interceptions in the game, and Eagles maybe had 4 turnovers, maybe 5. So it was pretty ugly the first time. I don't expect it to be a real good game this time. 2 teams that aren't very good. Eagles have been a mess for the last, month, really? 2 months? Maybe you could even say the season. But defensively, they've really been a mess, and I just don't see how humanly that they're going to be able to even slightly cover Odell Beckham, who's coming back and not, really, I won't say upset, but, he's motivated to sort of get back out there and show, hey, I messed up, and like a little redemption, self-redemption for him after he just served a one-game suspension. So good luck for the Eagles trying to guard him. And who do they have to guard him? What do we have?
Eric Rowe, probably.
EJ Biggers and Eric Rowe. Eric Rowe, Eric Rowe has 0% chance to guard Odell Beckham. Really? Maybe negative. Can I give him a negative % chance to guard him?
I don't know if there is such a thing, but sure, why not?
If it was possible, that's pretty much what it would be. He's you guys know where Eric Rowe is in his career. This isn't a guy who's anywhere near a guy who can cover a top receiver. So good luck to him.
Jordan, one more question for you before I let you go. Looking ahead to the Giants offseason, obviously there's lots of things swirling around both the general manager and the head coach. But outside of those two situations, what can we expect to see from the Giants offseason and trying to maybe get better for 2016?
Well, I think you can definitely see offensive playmaker. They're going to need another offensive playmaker. I would totally expect them to do that. Ruben Randall's a free agent. He's not really a playmaker anyway. They need more out of that wide receiver position. And they need just more defensive playmakers. They're going to need pass rushers. Their two defensive ends, Jason Pierre-Paul and Robert Ayers, both are free agents. So the Giants really will have, once free agency begins, they will have no pass rushers on their roster. And they need to do something at safety. They need to make sure they kind of solidify that position. I don't think they can go into the season again next year and say, all right, we're going to pray that one of these young guys who are all injured this year at safety are the answer there next to Landon Collins. I mean, you got to go in with a little more solid plan than that. And linebackers, I mean, this team desperately needs linebackers. They have to address it. They have no middle linebacker for the present or the future. So, I mean, you have to, if they don't address that, then they're just going to be back in the same predicament probably next year. So those are some spots where you'll absolutely see the Giants move forward and address those spots.
Jordan Raanan covers the Giants for NJ.com. Appreciate you coming on the air, and Happy New Year.
Hey, you too, guy. You too, man. Have a good one.
Take care, Jordan.